All right, everybody. We are live. It is Jamie Plunkett, Melissa Treebwasser, Stats O'War, and Grant McGalliard, a Frogs O'War and Purple Fury crossover to talk about the breaking news. Gary Patterson and TCU have mutually agreed to part ways. He is stepping down effective immediately. Jerry Kill will be the interim head coach for the remainder of the season, while athletic director Jeremiah Donati will start a national search for TCU's next head football coach. Guys, we got into group text a couple of minutes prior to the news breaking, and really were astounded by this breaking news. I want to kick it to Melissa first. Melissa, what's your gut reaction to this news?
I mean, it's a bittersweet day. It's a sad day more than anything. You know, I think that I've been of the large vocal group that have said that something needs to change, and that it was okay to absolutely appreciate and respect and be grateful for all that Gary Patterson has done while still evaluating him over the current state of TCU football, and the message wasn't getting through. And so I had never flat out said that Gary needed to go, and I didn't believe that, but I thought staff changes needed to be made, and knowing what we know about Gary Patterson, that was likely not to happen. So I don't want to say I'm devastated by this. I'm a little bit in a state of shock. I can directly appreciate everything that Gary Patterson has done for TCU because I got there the year before he did, and I've watched this growth. So it's a really weird feeling of both gratitude and appreciation for all that he's done, and also excitement and a little bit of trepidation for what comes next.
Parker, Grant, what about you guys?
I'm legitimately sad. I mean, I think I did a kind of long monologue last Sunday that was just like, man, he deserves to go out on his own terms. And I want that to be better or worse. And if this is how he wants to go out, like, obviously this isn't ideal from any way, shape, or form. The thought was, you know, he would win 10 games one more time and there'd be one last ride. And it is really unsatisfying and a little sad that there's not one last ride. That being said, I think this could have slipped into Bill Snyder territory. This could have gotten ugly. This could have gone a lot of ways. And so I'm grateful that it's not going to go that way. But this is, I would say the timing of this is pretty unexpected. I don't think anyone in the entire world would have thought this was going to happen. And I think that, I mean, again, TCU is a great job and can attract a great candidate to fill in. And I think there's two things, and I'll let Grant hop in there. One, TCU is a great job because of what Gary Patterson did for TCU. So regardless of how disappointed we've been the last 4 years with the football program, it's his football program. And I think we could attract a great candidate, you know, recruiting, facilities, everything. Also knowing that we don't need to replace Gary Patterson, the 20-year program builder, all-time college football Hall of Fame coach. We need to replace Gary Patterson, the coach from 2018 to 2021.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I think I'll echo what y'all said just in terms of Gary deserved to go out on his own terms. What the program became in the last 3 years shouldn't overshadow what the program was under him for the first 17, and really how he brought TCU into national prominence, which, you know, it's impressive. I think what surprises me the most is that he resigned effective immediately. I would have been okay with him saying, hey, this is my last year. And, you know, try to just maybe get a dead cat bounce for the last 4 games or whatever. But if you wanted a clean break, that's totally fine. I hope that the coaching search truly is national and not just conducted between the state borders of Virginia. And that we, you know, go and look and see, you know, who really is the best fit for TCU that Donati can, you know, reasonably acquire. But yeah, it's a strange day. I didn't expect it to all kind of come together so quickly. It's certainly not what, if you'd asked me before the beginning of the year, I wouldn't have said this is Gary's last ride.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you guys said. I didn't expect it to be his last ride. I figured, you know, with his clear desire to do things beyond football coaching, that this would be his last contract. But even with that ending in 2024, I didn't expect anything to really happen prior to that. Obviously, with such a tumultuous season, with injuries, with a lot of questions thrown his way about player management and play calling, and it just felt like once the boulder started rolling down the hill, there was far too much momentum to really stop anything else from happening at that point. I think for me personally, I'm pretty heartbroken by this. It's kind of like Dirk retiring at the end of the season. You want the best possible version of someone riding off into the sunset, and it didn't happen for Patterson, like several of you guys have already echoed. The question now is Jerry Kill, interim head coach. Grant, you kind of hinted at it already that there's going to be a coaching search. We hope that it's actually a national search. I'd like to hear from you guys. Who do you think is the next head coach of TCU football?
I mean,
or should, because is.
Let's start with
there's a normative and a positive question there, Jamie.
Fair enough. All right, let's start with the positive version of that. Who are some names out there that are going to be on the short list for the variety of schools who have open head coaching jobs at the end of the year, or at least should?
Okay, so immediately the two names that are going to be at the top of the list regardless are Jeff Traylor at UTSA, who just set up for the buyout. And I don't mean to, crap on the UTSA bros, but that just means that doesn't mean Jeff Traylor's staying. That just means he's getting UTSA taken care of when he does stay, or if he doesn't stay.
Yeah.
It's a $7.5 million buyout.
Yeah.
If he leaves during or right after his first year.
Can somebody closer to the program, we could talk about this later. I wonder if TCU's paying all of Gary's buyout. That doesn't matter. That's not my money. I don't care. Mm-hmm. So Traylor and then Justin Fuente, who is kind of on the outs at Virginia Tech, they're waiting. This is interesting. The timing of this is really interesting because Virginia Tech is waiting. Fuente has a huge buyout drop off December 1. And so they're waiting to fire him after the regular season. And so that might be a consideration for TCU's search and the timing and everything as well, just knowing that his buyout's going to go out. I think those two are the most obvious candidates. Yeah, I don't know.
Melissa, Grant?
I just saw Gary Patterson tweet from 3 hours ago of all the TCU players playing in the Houston, Indianapolis, LA Rams game.
The picture, yeah. He went down to Houston for the Rams-Texans game to support Wallow, Blacklock, and the other guys from Frog Country.
This is emotional. Yeah, I'm sad about this.
I think there are so many there's so many candidates I don't know enough about, right? I think the obvious ones are Traylor and Dykes and Fuente, obviously. I would love to see if we're going to make this kind of dramatic change of a 20-plus year tenured head coach. I'd like to see a completely fresh start, a completely clean slate, a completely reworked system, some fresh eyes from outside of the program. And so I really think it's going to be Justin Fuente because, Jeremiah Donati has not taken on something like this in his entire career, and that's probably the safest route to go. But I love even Sonny Dykes because it would just kill SMU, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But I hope it is a nationwide search, and I hope that they bring in 25 candidates, and I hope that they vet them all extensively, and that we get an opportunity to see completely new blood.
Yeah, I think I've almost probably neglected my research on this just because I've assumed it's going to be a foregone conclusion that they hire Fuente. And I made the joke earlier. There's positives and minuses about hiring him. Because I do think under the right set of circumstances, he can be a good coach. I would honestly be totally fine with hiring a high-level coordinator. Again, you don't have to replace Gary Patterson. You don't even have to bring in a guy that's, a huge emphasis on defense like he is. I just want to see someone with innovation. And I know that's generic and that's probably not as specific of an answer as people would like. But I just want to see someone, like you said, Melissa, that's going to bring a fresh start and kind of inject this program with a little bit of life, because it's been really, really stale since Trevon Boykin was quarterback. So, someone that's going to bring in, new staff, new ideas, and really kind of turn around the direction the program's been headed.
I completely agree. Parker, you looking like you were nodding your head there.
No, I was rolling my eye because someone said Coach Orgeron is available.
Yeah, no, I don't want anything to do with Ed
I think the guys
Orgeron.
you've got to call are Billy Napier, who I think now is not waiting for LSU, but is waiting for Alabama. TCU might be a better place to wait for Alabama than Louisiana. He recruits great in Louisiana. I think we're going to hear calls for like Jamie Chadwell, but I don't know that that's going to be real. Honestly, I think there's a couple Big 12 coordinators that would make a little bit more sense because you want someone. I mean, but then again, you're close to DFW. You have access to great talent. NFL teams come and use your facilities all the time. You've got dope uniforms and you've got a cool, weird mascot that's a fun brand. Like, I think somebody who could come in and be a CEO type or an offensive minded person could really come and out recruit a lot of places. My question that gets really dark. All right, the big three. How many of Duggan, Evans, Johnston are on the team next year, given this is happening? Are we going to just total turnover?
I think it totally depends on who you bring in, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of those guys came on because of the stability of the program. But like you said, this is not a bad job. And we've had to deal with so many people saying, oh, what's going to happen when Gary Patterson leaves? You're so quick to run him out and we're going to go back to obscurity. Not if they don't totally blow this.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at a very winnable Big 12 once Texas and Oklahoma leave for the foreseeable future. You've brought kids in who believe in the program. Maybe you keep some of your assistant coaches, even though I'm saying I want a clean slate. Like if they want to keep Paul Gonzalez and elevate him to DC, if they want to keep Malcolm Kelly, those guys that a lot of those kids signed to play for, then that could ultimately be a thing. I think Zach Evans was gone no matter what. And so Max Duggan what are his options going to be? He's going to have to drop down a level. Like he's probably not going to have a ton of Power 5 opportunities. I don't think I don't think he's really necessarily had the opportunity to showcase that skill set. Right. And so I think, I don't think it's going to be a total roster turnover. You're definitely going to lose a handful of guys, but if they nail the head coach hire, then there's no reason to think that anybody would want to leave.
And with the recruiting so I talk so much. I'm sorry, guys. With the recruiting is so
we've
good.
all heard your podcast, Parker. We know.
When the recruiting is so good, and with the transfer portal and the market for transfer quarterbacks, somebody could come to TCU and do a less than 2-year turnaround, like year 2 competing. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and even if you look at recent transitions that we've seen from these kind of legacy head coaches to the next person, I mean, even if you want to talk about the Baylor example, the head coaching transition there, we all thought was going to be incredibly shaky and last for a long time. And 2 head coaches later, Dave Aranda has that team at 7-1 and potentially a top 10 ranked team. And it did not take a whole lot to really get that program turned around. And, obviously we're biased. I think TCU is still a better job than Baylor at this present moment.
Yep.
And so really, truly, like you guys have all said at this point, there are all of the resources necessary to continue having a successful football program beyond Gary Patterson. It is just about getting in the right guy to make those moves.
And I really like what Parker said about Billy Napier, because one thing Gary did really well was establish that recruiting pipeline into Louisiana. And I think if we can continue to kind of hold our ground there and kind of keep those relationships, that would be a great name. And if Max and Q and Evans do leave, which I do think Evans will leave, that's just a talent pool can kind of replace those 4-star guys that that are in that area.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about it, you had one more year of Zach anyways, even if he stays. You probably had one more year of Quentin, even if he stays. Those are NFL caliber kids. They're not part of a transition. The kids that are a part of a transition like this haven't been recruited yet.
Yeah.
And so it's less about the current roster and more about the staff that you employ to build the roster moving forward. Just again, for everyone who might just be joining on, the news is real. You're not dreaming. Unfortunately, Gary Patterson has stepped down as the head coach at Texas Christian University. It was a mutual parting of the ways, according to Drew Davison at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. It's just shocking to have it be 2021, middle of the season, and for us to have reached this point. It feels like it was 10 years ago, won the Rose Bowl. It was 7 years ago now, thumping Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl. It was 4.5 years ago, the comeback in the Alamo Bowl with Kenny Hill over Stanford. Jeff Gladney chasing down Bryce Love to save a touchdown, and freshman Jalen Rager scoring a 93-yard touchdown. All the way down to this moment, which frankly just personally feels like a horrible low. There's a huge just like knot in my stomach right now.
Yeah, I would have never thought that Matt Jennings would have brought down a program that so quickly.
Single-handedly. Yeah, geez. Okay, we should all keep talking about this, and I'll let you guys keep talking. I'm in the car. We're outside of dinner. We're gonna get dinner and go see a movie tonight, and I'm not gonna pay attention to it at all. But my wife is inside alone, so I'm gonna hop off of the
Go
screen.
be with your wife.
This is wild. We'll continue to talk. Thanks for doing this, Jamie.
Thanks, Parker. I don't think we need to spend too much longer hashing this out. We're going to have a lot of news articles on Frogs of War in the next couple of days. Grant and Parker are going to talk about this extensively on the Purple Theory podcast as well, and probably in their email newsletter. But I just final thoughts on this kind of moment for the TCU, not just football program, but really the athletics department as a whole.
Well, I think so much of the athletics department has been expanded because of what Gary Patterson has done with TCU football, and that we owe so much of the success of TCU soccer, who won today, won a Big 12 championship. And, that so much of their program has been bettered because of what TCU football has done. TCU baseball has benefited. We have a TCU volleyball program, a beach volleyball program in part because of football. We have a medical school in part because of what Gary Patterson did with TCU football. I mean, he literally, it is not overstating to say that Gary Patterson changed the fortunes of not just TCU football, but TCU as a university. And that's an insane statement for one human being who is just, a football coach from Kansas, right? But also, are we going to talk about how weird it is that this is happening the Sunday before Baylor comes to town too? Of all time to play your biggest rival, this is painful.
Yeah.
Max is very disturbed. Max Doggin, this is tough for him too.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, this is, the timing, every angle that you look at it is incredibly unfortunate. Middle of the season changes are never a sign of something good. And the week before playing one of your biggest rivals definitely doesn't make it any easier. I'm sure Baylor fans will be laying it on pretty heavy in the coming days, which, do your worst, I suppose. Baylor fans. Shihan, I'm looking at you. But yeah, go Grant.
No, I was going to say my last two thoughts on it are what Melissa said about what Gary meant to the university as a whole. So many of my friends, found TCU because of the Rose Bowl. They came from California or Colorado, and the makeup of the TCU student body changed so much just because of what the football team did, honestly. And so Gary's impact, not to be corny, can't really be limited to the football field. He changed the whole landscape of the university, and I probably met a lot of people I wouldn't have if it weren't for Gary. So there's that. But the other thing is, and this is kind of what I'm curious about, and this is the last thing I have to say, but I wonder what the breaking point was. And I wonder, was it just losing to Kansas State, or I'm sure there's stuff behind the scenes we don't know about, because TCU's lost to Kansas State before often. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm just surprised that it was ugly, but I'm surprised that was the game that caused this.
Well, Kansas State's gotten 2 coaches fired in 2 weeks.
It's impressive.
So how about them? How about them Wildcats?
Who do they play Saturday? Tell that team to look out.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, I think just my final thoughts are similar to yours. TCU went from being a school that I could get accepted to the second most exclusive school in the state behind Rice because of that Rose Bowl. And it's just really difficult to process the fact that Gary Patterson isn't going to be the head coach of this football team anymore. Jamie Chadwell, please, someone says in the comments, yeah, he's on the list. He's got to be, right? But the legacy of Gary Patterson, and I'm going to write, obviously a lot of people are going to write about the legacy of Gary Patterson in the coming days. But putting anything into words and putting anything on paper seems to lessen the legacy, just kind of the enormity of it. what he's done for this program, this school, this town. And I hope that even though the dust isn't settling as anyone hoped it would, that there is some sort of emeritus space for him within the program. I hope that this isn't a stepping down, mutual parting of ways, and then we never see or hear from him again situation.
Yeah. Well, I imagine, the words that he used apparently with the team were stepping away, not retirement, not quitting football or anything. And so you do hope that there's kind of an overseer role. It's just going to be an interesting coaching search. Jeremiah Donati is going to have his hands full because USC is open, LSU is open. Those are obviously bigger name jobs. TCU is a damn good job. I don't think we fall off the face of the map here with Gary Patterson setting down. But I swear to God, if one more of you says any Briles family member in the comments, no, absolutely not. Like, I would rather never win another game than hire anyone associated with Baylor during that time period. End of story. Knock it off. Don't be disgusting football fans. Be human beings.
Can I interest you in a Lane Kiffin?
Absolutely. 100%.
One Lane Kiffin, please. Thank you.
The last thing I just want to say is one thing we haven't mentioned that is a huge part of Gary Patterson's legacy. The 40 not 4 is really, really true. He graduates players. He brings them back to the program. He looks after them long after they've left TCU. It is truly a family. And that attitude, that mentality has spread across baseball, where we saw, 24 guys show up for a Friday night fall game against the Rangers Futures. It spread to volleyball, it spread to the basketball programs. That mentality of TCU always be home is very real. And I think Gary Patterson deserves a lot of the credit for that. This is a brutal, brutal day. This is brutal. This hurts.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think that'll wrap this up, this quick conversation. Thanks, guys, for hopping on as quickly as you did, and shout out to Parker over at Stats War as well for his time here on the conversation this evening. Gary Patterson parting mutually with Texas Christian University as their head coach, Jerry Kill, interim head coach through the rest of the season, and the future, it's a question mark for now. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This is the Frogs of War Purple Theory emergency episode crossover. Thank you for everyone that commented and checked in. We will talk to you soon.